being accelerated down a path just means you need to be twice as sure about where you're trying to go. Because otherwise you're going faster in a wrong direction.
We're joined by Kern from Known and Janet from BCG. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by asking you both, really, when we talk about creative being done by GenAI, what are we really talking about?
Well, I think the most important thing is to say the capabilities have advanced rapidly, but it's really important that we de-average the conversation and not talk about creative in a broad brushstroke context. There are a lot of different types of creative. There's creative in paid social, there's creative in video, there's creative in email marketing. I think it's important to take the pieces apart and make sure that we're applying it in context.
I completely agree. I think for us, what we're seeing is an unlocking and an elevation of the high craft that people really think about to some extent when they talk about creative work. They're talking about that genesis, that spark of human insight and creativity. That's not getting done by GenAI. What is getting empowered and accelerated by GenAI is the expression of that and some of the endpoints that Janet mentioned, and our ability to iterate rapidly, to refine ideas, and to really bring them to life efficiently.
And do you think internal boundaries within companies will have to shift more aggressively in order for them to be able to actually make use of all the new potential out there?
The degree to which a lot of the way knowledge worker organizations have been organized and the systems that we think about as just being standard were really built around some of the impediments and deficits in the way that humans transmit and onboard information. And the idea that things had to move between departments or across disciplines in the form of a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet, which is really just a distillation and kind of a oversimplification of a lot of big ideas and conversations. And now I think with AI being embedded into our processes, it allows us to take really rich data sets that include a ton of granular information and move them with complete fidelity into a new part of the process. That's not a thing a human being can do easily, but that's a thing that an AI system can do easily. And so I think it's not that we have to redefine the way our orgs work for AI. I think it will allow us to work much more seamlessly with much higher fidelity across processes, and that will transform our business.
How much will the changes incorporate sort of staffing? You know, agency models are very sort of staffing focused. Will that have to change?
We've been trying to move and happily are having more success in the age of AI. We've been trying to move for a long time to a model that's more about output than it is about hours and impact. What have we done to deliver a successful campaign or a successful product launch? And how do we measure and understand our value in that context?
I think we're just going to see a deepening of, first of all, the partnerships between client and agency, because they become an extension of your team, first of all, which means deeper alignment on the KPIs, true partnership, not treating an agency like a vendor, and really blurring the lines. And that means on process, on people. Does the person at the agency work for the agency, or are they badged into your own team? It's a false dichotomy to think about in-housing and agency scope. We need to think about connecting the dots across the process that needs to be done in service of the business outcome that we're trying to achieve.
And what needs to change in the operating model in order to be able to think at the system level?
One of the things that is certainly a barrier is some of the commercial structures that exist today, because they're somewhat static and they're not necessarily aligned from an incentive model with the notion of outcomes. But I think everyone appreciates and understands that at the end of the day, the notion of aligning around a client's goals is going to be extremely important. I think starting to challenge the boundaries between the teams that work on paid, owned, and earned media becomes incredibly important. And then also thinking about the incentives across those teams so that, again, they don't have barriers in their own KPIs, so that they work more collectively even within the organization.
I think that's exactly right. We need to get crisper on KPIs, more aligned, and then let everything flow from there. Because having a faster car, having a better machine, having being accelerated down a path just means you need to be twice as sure about where you're trying to go. Because otherwise you're going faster in a wrong direction.
Excellent advice. Well, Kern and Janet, thanks very much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.